Good afternoon, dear friends. You are watching the Honest News channel. We continue to study what's happening at the front with you every day. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and give a like so more people can learn the truth. Now, let's move on to a review of the front. Let's open the map. So friends, the situation at the front remains the same. It's still bad for the Ukrainian armed forces and relatively stable progress for the Russian army. The day before yesterday, Russian forces took control of just over 20 square kilometers. And yesterday the progress was a bit more modest, 14.6 square kilometers. Nevertheless, Ukraine is losing more than 10 square kilometers of territory every day, consistently. And despite this, Zelensky still doesn't seem particularly eager to start negotiations. Where's the logic? Well, it seems to be absent. But let's begin with the southern front and then move north. Today there have been some very interesting advances, not just advances but breakthroughs in some areas, and we'll talk about them today. Let's start with the area near Velyka Novosilka. Everything is as expected here. Russian forces spent a few days consolidating their positions and taking a short pause for recovery, then continued their offensive actions. As you can see, the advance is coming from 2 points. From Vremivka to the northwest, and from Velyka Novosilka also to the northwest. You know, after the AFU lost Velyka Novosilka, I clearly remember what was being written on Ukrainian telegram channels. Do you know what they said? No big deal, the Russians have trapped themselves. They'll now be under artillery fire from the heights. We'll destroy them, and so on. Well, how did the anti-crisis strategy work out? Not at all. Look at this. From Vremivka, the advance has been about 1.7 kilometers. Also from Velyka Novosilka, this section up to the river and even the heights beyond it is now under Russian control. So the plan to destroy Russian soldiers from the heights failed because the AFU couldn't hold on to those heights. Therefore, the entire area, this entire section up to the river, is under Russian control, and at least part of the heights is too. What happens next? The next step is to advance towards Novosheretovato, bypassing the river. So Russian forces are already near Novosheretovato, but crossing the river hasn't been possible yet, though there have been several attempts. Now a bypass of the river is underway, and the advance will lead directly to Novosheretovato. After that, as we've already mentioned, the goal is to continue through the cascade of villages up to the Zaporizhzhia-Kurakhove highway. Let's continue. There has been some modest progress in the direction of Ruslan village. The advance here has been about 1.5 kilometers, and now there's just over 2 kilometers to go before reaching the village itself. Also, the situation in Dachne, the village just west of Kurakhove, is developing rapidly. Yesterday, Russian forces, specifically soldiers from the 102nd Motorized Rifle Regiment, made a breakthrough from the northern and eastern parts of the village into the center. I posted a video of the fighting in Dachne's center on my Telegram channel, and for those interested, you can find the link to my channel in the video description. There, you'll find a lot of interesting things, including battle footage from Velyka Novosilka, prisoners, casualties, and details about the advances. So be sure to check it out and subscribe. Now back to Dachne. Fighting is ongoing in the center of the village, and the AFU is only holding positions on the western outskirts. According to their own reports, only about 10% of the initial garrison remains. In addition to Dachne itself, Russian forces have advanced southward, through the woods, with the goal to move parallel and get into the AFU's rear from the west. Now, moving on to the most important and interesting news of the day. An extremely important event took place here. Russian forces have begun moving from Nadezhdinka, Kotlyarivka, and this information is confirmed by Ukrainian sources as well. They are saying that the Russians will likely reach Kotlyarivka very quickly. And you know, there are no obstacles here, no fortifications, no concrete bunkers, nothing. Just open fields all the way to the village. Of course, open fields can still pose challenges, as they can be under drone and artillery fire. However, over the years of conflict, there is experience in overcoming such obstacles. Ukrainian analysts agree that these 5 kilometers will be covered quickly, and this is very important. It's significant because even Ukrainian sources, who wouldn't exaggerate Russian successes, are confirming this. What happens next? Right now, Russian forces are advancing from Nadezhdinka Kotlyarivka, and they'll definitely reach Kotlyarivka. But then what? Kotlyarivka is a small village, with a pre-war population of just 90 people. It won't be able to hold off Russian forces for long, simply because it has just a few streets. From Kotlyarivka, it's just a short distance to Dnepropetrovsk region, just a few kilometers, and not only to Dnepropetrovsk region, but also to Novopavlivka, which is just 8 kilometers away, with no significant obstacles in the way. And Novopavlivka is an important logistical hub in Dnepropetrovsk region. So it's possible that Russia's push into Dnepropetrovsk region will come from this area, rather than from Udachne, even though it's currently closer from there. Speaking of Udachne, there has also been some progress by Russian forces. Despite all the counterattacks from the Ukrainian armed forces, the advance continues. According to reports, Russian units have taken control of the railway station. But more interestingly, Russian forces are almost at the western outskirts, and yesterday there was an attempt to break through to the western outskirts of Udachne. It wasn't successful, but it's clear that attempts will continue. The goal here is to flank the AFU garrison in Udachne, so they'll have no choice but to retreat to the mine in the north. The mine is just over a kilometer away from these positions. So decisive battles for this large area are coming soon. On the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, things aren't looking good for the AFU either. Russian forces advanced 1.5 kilometers yesterday and reached the outskirts of Vodyan too. This led to the consolidation and clearing of an area of 4.5 square kilometers. If we move over here, there were new attempts to enter Yelizavetovka, but it's still unclear whether they were successful. Last time, Russian forces were able to enter the village but couldn't hold it. In the Toretsk area, after the clearing of the city center, in addition to the Toretsk mine, the Russian control zone has expanded beyond the city. As you can see, this entire northern area is now under Russian control, along with most of Krimsky and Dachne. Fighting continues at the mine, and a decisive moment hasn't yet arrived. As for Chasiv Yar, we talked about it yesterday. There's been little change over the past 24 hours. The advance toward Shevchenko is continuing, and efforts are being made to clear the southern pocket and connect the positions to completely block the AFU forces still in the central multi-story building areas. Assaults are also ongoing in these buildings. Let's move on to the Surzhansk direction. As you can see, over the past 24 hours, a large number of geolocations have been published. Apparently, the warm weather has brought not only mud, but also clearer skies, which allows for increased activity and intensity in the use of unmanned aerial vehicles. We can see a large number of geolocations of drone strikes on Ukrainian positions, both in the border areas of Sumy region and on Ukrainian positions in the settlement of Sverdlikova. Strikes are also being made on the settlement of Martinivka, and FAB bombs are regularly arriving. So we are witnessing the highest level of activity here, and this heightened activity has been ongoing for several days. That's all for today regarding the front. I wish you a good day and see you soon.